folks. Happy holidays and welcome to yet another episode of Famicom Fridays. Now, it is the season of giving, I suppose, and so as a result, I wanted to make sure that this episode hit on a topic that a lot of you have been asking about. So, I've looked over the comments over the past few weeks, and I found this particular trend in the questions you've been asking.
How do you make your tracks? What program do you use to make your music? I demand that you make a show about the program you use to make your 8-bit music.
Why have you been late on your protection payments? You know what happens to those who forget to pay up.
I have no idea what that last question is talking about. So instead, I'll talk about the other questions I've been asked. A lot of people want to know what applications or programs I like to use when it comes to writing chiptune music, and I addressed this a little bit back in episode 2, but let's go ahead and bring the answer right away. Reason by Propellerhead Software. Ever since 2004, I've been using Reason to create music of a wide range of genres, including chiptune music. And it is the application that I know best when it comes to writing music in this style. Now, does this mean that it's the best application out there for writing chiptune music? Of course not. But it's the one I know strongest, and I feel that I'm best suited to explain to you all how to use. So, with that all being said, this is Famicom Fridays, and today we're going to talk about Reason and creating chiptune music in it. That is the title we're going with for today? That? I mean, I know I create some pretty bad puns, but that's just awful. I mean, don't we have anything better we can do for our title for today? Anything? I'm just going to cut my losses and go on. Let's just go on to the first topic. If you were to look at all the options you have right now when it comes to writing chiptune music, you'd be surprised by all the options and ways you can get the job done. However, back in 2004, I really didn't know what all these options were, and I was using just Reason 2.5, which meant I was limited to just one option when it came to creating accurate sounding NES tones, or well, I thought they were accurate. By using the built-in Subtractor synthesizers within Reason, I could try to create sounds that seemed as accurate as possible to the NES's own built-in synthesizers. Now, I did this without really researching into the topic, so you'll see what happens in the end. Needless to say, in order to test the accuracy of these sounds, what I did was take one of the most iconic theme songs from the NES era of games, put these sounds into the music, and see how well it lined up against the original. So, let's take a look at how well that turned out.
In my attempt to recreate the overworld theme from The Legend of Zelda, these were the settings I had on the various Subtractor synthesizers. These were the settings I used on the first synth, which was going to act as the melody line. Also, take note of how the second synthesizer looks pretty much exactly the same as the first synth. This was because when I came up with a good sounding synth for the melody line, I simply just copied the settings into the second track. Now, this may seem very lazy, and it is very lazy, but I was also young and stupid at the time. For the third track of the song, I made sure to make the synthesizer settings that of a triangle wave. This is because between the 3 melodic tracks of the NES, one of them had to be dedicated as a triangle wave, whereas the other 2 were dedicated to become square waves of sorts. In what should be unsurprising for those of you who have been following me so far, the 4th channel is dedicated for noise and used to create a percussion sound, as was typically the case in NES games in general. Put these 4 tracks together and you get something that sounds pretty much like the overworld theme for The Legend of Zelda. Or is it?
And after listening to all that work I put forth in it, it has to sound correct, doesn't it? You know, it has to sound just absolutely perfect. It has to sound absolutely nothing like the original at all. I mean, wait. As you probably noticed back there, the sounds that we're getting were okay, but nowhere near accurate when it came to making an authentic NES or Famicom sound. This would have to wait for a few years until I got some more authentic samples. But why didn't the synthesizers work, you may ask? Well, this was mostly because of two main reasons. The synths I was using for the melody and counter melody were not creating the exact waveforms necessary, whereas the bassline synthesizer was far too clean sounding to be an accurate representation of the NES's bass note, the triangle wave specifically. And for that particular example, let me just give you something to listen to right over here.
This is an example of what the Subtractor synth's triangle wave sounds like. And now for comparison purposes, this is what a more authentic triangle wave sounds like if it's coming out of the NES or Famicom. As you should be able to hear, the triangle wave being played by the Subtractor sounds a lot cleaner and more pristine than the triangle wave being generated by an NES.
The NES's own internal synthesizer was really not a high quality synth, because you're talking about a 4-channel synthesizer that was part of a larger $200 console. And so this really wasn't going to be a great sounding synth, but that low quality sound is essential to getting an accurate resolution, an accurate rendering of an NES sound. Now, I don't want you to think that there was nothing worthwhile that was found in this experiment. At the very least, I found out what parts of the Subtractor synths weren't effective at emulating the NES sound. But I did found one part that was effective. You remember that Blue Bomber video I did a few weeks ago? Well, I used the noise generator in the Subtractor to do the drums in that song. Remember the video about Linkara's theme song that I did in 8-bit? Well, I did the drums also using the noise generator in the Subtractor. So this one part of the experiment that I did for this Zelda transcription became very effective and became a cornerstone to my writing technique down the line. And that's really kind of important about anything you do when it comes to your own creative process, is that you find your own methodology that works, usually through trial and error, practice, and growth. But at this point, you may still have one more question. How did you ultimately get really good sounding NES sounds for your music sketch? And the answer is, well, I bought the samples for it. I went to this one website, chipcollection.com, and I went and bought their NES Wave Pack, which is basically $20. It gives you some pretty high resolution samples of sounds taken from an NES, and after a bit of tweaking, I started using them in my music. Now, I wouldn't say that these sounds are perfect right off the bat. You have to do some tweaking, they don't loop, and they're a little bit on the noisy side, but after some work, after some tweaking, and combining all the different skills I picked up, I'm able to use them now in Reason and get some really great sounding stuff. And now, with the addition of features in Propellerhead Software's Record, I can now add audio files directly into the tracks that I'm working on and synchronize my music against lyrics, much like I did in Linkara's song. And so with these programs, I'm able to expand on my writing on a huge scale. Now, as I said, this isn't the only option out there for writing chiptune music. There's many other possibilities out there, and I hope to hit on these possibilities in future videos as I do my research and otherwise. But for the time being, thank you for spending your Fridays with me, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and happy holidays. As always, feel free to contact me whenever if you have any suggestions for future shows or songs you'd like to hear me write up for future shows and demonstrations. So, for the time being, this is Skitch signing off for now. You enjoy your weekend, folks. I got some vampires to hunt.